Welcome to Fade to Chat, the podcast where we revisit classic films and explore why they still matter, or at least why they still unsettle us in the best possible way. And I think that's the best description for the film we're going to do today, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb from 1964. A Stanley Kubrick production, but Peter Sellers is all over it. I'm Marty Gensius, joined as always by Cindy Rotz, and in this episode we descend into the war room. There are three major three major locations in this. There's the war room, there's Burpelson Air Force Base. If you pay attention to the names of all the stuff in this movie, it's funny enough with that. Mm-hmm. And then also the B-52 bomber is I think the other major scene in this. I'm not going to go too far without asking, Cindy, what are your general impressions of this movie? Because you didn't know it, and I kind of said, take a risk at it. So what's your thoughts?
Well, I watched it 4 times.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. First time I just watch it cold. Like I know nothing about it. I'm just going to watch it and not even make any notes or anything. And then the second time I watched it, I made a few notes, just general, like what I thought was funny. I didn't understand this. What did this mean? I have to look that up, that kind of thing. The third time I watched it, it was after I had watched some YouTube clips about it. I watched a little bit about behind the scenes with Kubrick as director. And of course, I looked up all kinds of trivia on IMDb and got a lot more information about it. It's like, okay, now that makes sense to me. Now I understand that. And then the fourth time I watched it, of course, I made more notes. Fourth time I watched it, it was just like a general review of just making sure I got everything straight. And it's like, okay, now it all fits together and it all makes sense. So, yeah.
But you didn't answer my question. What did you think of the film?
No, I didn't. Okay. I would characterize it as a guy's film.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say it isn't for women, but it is very, had a lot of sexual undertones, innuendos, which didn't bother me. But it's definitely a guy's film. It's very thought-provoking. There were one part of it I found sad, which may surprise you. The first time I watched it, I thought, oh, that's sad. One part shocked me and made me jump. I mean, I literally jumped in my seat. I was like, oh, it's like one of those, like, oh my God. It's probably not the part you think. And overall, I enjoyed it. Like you said, it was not violent, except for the one scene. But it got funnier the more I watched it. The first time I watched it through, I thought, why is this so funny? But the second, third, and of course the last time, I'm like, oh, okay. And I was really enjoying it and laughing it, and it made more sense to me the more and more I watched it.
So what part made you sad?
Well, the part where they played the song at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made me a little sad.
Yeah, I foreshadowed that in the last episode. I gave you a lyric or two from it.
Did.
Yeah. And what part shocked you?
Well, I don't know if I should say it.
Go ahead.
Okay. When the crazy general went into the bathroom and shot himself, I literally jumped out of my seat. I wasn't expecting that.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right.
Hearing the shot, it was like, oh! Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can see in the mirror where he puts the towel around his neck.
I saw that, yeah.
And Peter Sellers, I guess Colonel Mandrake said, oh, that's good, you're going to take a shave.
Shave, yes, you're going to take a shave.
And get all freshened up.
Yeah, a brush and a shave or something. And then you hear that shot. It's like, oh my God, killed himself. He was crazy, but yeah. That was the only part that shocked me.
Yeah. Okay, we'll
But
we'll
it
get
did
into some.
get funnier and funnier,
Yeah.
I will
We'll
say.
get into some. Did you catch the nuances in a lot of the names? I mean, first of all,
Oh, yes.
who would name an Air Force base Burpelson Air Force
Burpelson.
Base?
Yeah. And Jack the
Buck
Ripper.
Turgison. Buck
Uh-huh.
Turgison
Uh-huh.
for George C. Scott.
Yeah.
This was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and pre-show I said he is one of my favorite directors.
Mm-hmm.
He moves. I think some of his best stuff was in the '70s and even I think onto the '80s when he did his work. This is a really conservative looking, no bearded, fully hair adorned
Mm.
picture of Stanley Kubrick in a suit, and later shots of him, like doing The Shining and other films that he did, much more kind of within the norm of the age in terms of the look.
Right.
Peter Sellers as Mandrake, and he played three roles in this film:
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Mandrake, Merkin Muffley, which was the president of the United States. And if you don't know what a Merkin is, you need to look that up
Yeah.
because it has its own meaning and its own bit of satire. And then he also played, well, there he is as Merkin Muffley for those who are watching the video. And then he played Dr. Strangelove. And he was set to play a fourth role. He really wanted to play a fourth role. He wanted to play Major Kong, which was that role was done by Slim Pickens. And however, he injured his leg trying to climb on one of the atomic bombs. And as a result, he then couldn't get in and out of the cockpit seats. And so he was reduced to three roles, which he got paid 55% of the budget. It was he got paid $1 million for those three roles. And I love the quote that Kubrick says he's been accused of saying with regard to with Peter Sellers' part. He said, "I got three for the price of six."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read that. I read that.
Yeah, Sellers was commanding that type of salary because his work prior to this very popular, of course, in British cinema and in comedy and such. The Strangelove, I don't know if you notice this in the shot when they're doing the shot around the war room. The war room, I think, is the the major one of the major themes and one of the major places in this. But as the president is speaking, if you look around the men that are at the table, you can see somebody dressed up like Dr. Strangelove sitting at the
Yes.
table, and he doesn't really come into the film until further into it when
Right.
they ask his opinion. So,
Yes. Yeah, I did catch that.
directed by Stanley Kubrick, source material was Red Alert by Peter George, Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Sterling Hayden, Slim Pickens, and James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones, one of his first films, they pulled him off a
Mm-hmm.
theater when he saw him in theater and moved him into that. Originally, this was supposed to be sort of a drama, which is kind of what Kubrick was known for up to that point. And then it got written into more of a satire and realized we need to, particularly with Peter Sellers' skills, we need to turn this into a political satire. So,
I didn't recognize him at first
as which role?
as the president.
Yeah.
I really,
Major,
really had to look.
yeah, major bald cap kind of,
Yeah,
and then his accent is so clean
exactly.
that
Yeah.
originally with his name Merck and Muffley, they were going to play him as a more effeminate kind of bumbling
Mm-hmm.
president, and Peter Sellers went wild with that, and everybody was cracking up over it on set.
Yeah.
And then Kubrick turned around and said, "No, we're going to reshoot this in a more serious
Mm-hmm.
tone," and he used all the takes of Sellers in a more serious kind of role,
Yeah.
despite his name.
But you're right
Uh,
about the names. The first one I wrote down was Jack the Ripper. Uh, really? Well, that's a great name for him.
yeah,
Jack D. Ripper.
yeah, and that was Sterling Hayden.
Yes.
And had you seen Sterling Hayden in much
I
else?
don't think so. I watched an interview with him where he said he really had trouble remembering his lines to the point
Oh,
where they
yeah.
had to go line by line by line. And they had to take the rest of the cast out. And he was so upset about it. He said, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. And Kubrick said, that's okay. It is what it is. And he had that kind of fear in his eyes. And he said he left that in because he thought that really played to his character because he was so concerned about, his lines that he couldn't get them right. And so they had to do each one. I forget what you called that, stepping it in or something like that.
Huh.
You probably know that technical term. But I
Actually, I
watched a
don't.
really good
So,
interview with him.
yeah, Sterling Hayden was in a previous Stanley Kubrick film called The Killing. And that was from 1956. It is basically a group of thieves have gotten together and decide they're going to rob the racetrack. And it's an interesting drama, and Sterling Hayden plays a major role in it. So he was familiar with working with Kubrick, and probably used to his multiple takes and multiple takes. With that Kubrick was known for like 50, 60 takes per scene,
Mm-hmm.
and that became apparent in Eyes Wide Shut, and with the shooting of that movie later on in his life, and then also I guess in other films, Peter Sellers didn't quite understand that. And he
Mm-hmm.
improvised most of his action and words in that. And it was said, and I believe this, of people who improvise, they only got two or three good shots at it. And after that, it feels fake. It feels like they are, you know, just going through the actions instead of experiencing the character.
Right.
So
Trying too
Sellers had a
hard.
hard time with Kubrick, and he also had kind of mental strain. He was a very kind of
Mm-hmm.
internally emotional and troubled actor, and so there are points where he would be like in his dressing room crying, and he kind of threw his whole psyche into his work, and his work was, I think, also an escape from his psyche.
Mm-hmm.
So he had trouble with these multiple takes after multiple takes, in so much that Kubrick decided to like set up multiple cameras. So he knew if he only had two or three good takes from Peter Sellers, he was going to get every angle that he
Mm-hmm.
needed
Mm-hmm.
in the shooting. So yeah, to go back in terms of Sterling Hayden, he is really quite frightening in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a full reveal. He's just so stern and direct. And until you go through the dialogue that he had with Mandrake about the reasoning where he came up with this idea,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the
Crazy.
irony was fluoridation in the 60s was controversial, and there were all sorts of, I remember some of that, but it was controversial in the sense of, should we be putting this in our bodies? And what's the conspiracy theory around that? So
Yeah.
this fit right into the narrative.
Yeah. His explanation to Mandrake was, again, a very sexual
Yeah.
kind of explanation, but it was interesting but he truly believed it. And
Yeah.
that was the most frightening part, that he believed everything he said.
Yeah, well, that's where that's how people with delusional networks cause problems.
Yeah.
And he caused a real problem.
I will say one of the things I wrote down that I thought was funny, where he kept his machine gun, in his office. He pulled it out of his golf bag. I did find that funny. I thought, oh, everybody keeps a machine gun in their golf bag, right?
Yeah, and there's another scene where he's firing the thing off, and then he grabs the muzzle of the machine gun. And generally those muzzles, if you notice that had lots of holes in it, those muzzles are to disperse heat, because they are so much rapid firing, they get really hot. You would not grab it that way.
Grab that.
Because you'd burn your
that's
hands.
something you know. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, little things.
Yeah, and then I thought it was interesting when Peter Sellers was down on the floor, he kept saying, "I'll feed you. I'll feed you." It's almost like a baby remark almost. He said, I'll feed it to you, Jack. I'll feed it to you. Later on when he was trying to reason with him. Yeah, it was a very interesting scene in his office.
Yeah. And then in arrives, I think it's Colonel Bat Guano.
Yeah, that was another crazy one. Bat Guano.
And even Sellers
he even said, is that your real name?
If that's your real name,
Yeah.
Colonel Bat Guano, played by Keenan Wynn, who had to play that whole thing really straight and really kind of angry and upset. And the line, of course, you're going to have to deal with Coca-Cola if this comes back.
Yeah, I wrote that down as one of my favorite scenes, and the line where he was trying to make a phone call in that phone booth, and he didn't have enough change.
Yeah.
And he asked him. He said, "Do you have any change with you?" And he said, "Well, you don't think I go into combat with loose change in my pocket, do you?" Again, he just said it so straight.
Yeah.
That was a great
Point
scene.
it.
I love that.
Shoot at it. That's where the bullets come out.
Yeah.
So
all that change comes flying out of the machine, and it sprays him all over his face. And that was a great scene.
Another actor in this film, and I don't know if you saw this in the scene. I watched it again last night. Peter Bull, who played the Russian ambassador, Alexei, Alexei Sadsky. It's almost like sadism. And
he said, "What kind of a name is that?"
Yeah, what was the story on that? What kind of name is that?
Well, because he said, "Is that a Russian name or is that a Ruski name?" They were always making fun of the Russians. They didn't really say Russian. They called him all kinds of other names.
Yeah.
And he said, "What kind of name is that?" That was when George C. Scott chewing his gum. He's always offering his gum to people too. He's like, "Want a piece of gum?" Wrigley. It was Wrigley's too. He had like 10 packs of Wrigley's gum with him in the war room. And he kind of leaned over to the one guy. He said, "What kind of name is that anyway?" And he said he changed it when he came to America, I believe.
Well, I think they were talking
discussion about that.
Yeah, I think they were talking about the Russian, but they also talked about that in terms of Dr. Strangelove, wanted to know
Oh, my, okay.
what the name was. Another little bit about Sterling Hayden. He talks about the commies and the red influence and stuff like that. He was actually a member of the American Communist Party, which
Yeah,
makes
I
that
heard
even
that.
more interesting. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure he saw the satire in this as he did it. Now with Peter Bull, I don't know if you saw the scene at the end when they're all standing around him in the standing around Dr. Strangelove, and Dr. Strangelove is having a well, there's actually a technical term for it that was suffers from agnostic apraxia, also known as alien hand syndrome.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
caused by damage to the corpus callosum, which is the band of fibers that communicate between both sides of the brain. And the researchers at University of Aberdeen identified it and named it Dr. Strangelove syndrome. Well,
Hmm.
Peter Sellers' Strangelove is like fighting his arm and hitting his arm, and you can see all the men standing
Hmm.
around kind of watching him. And did you see Peter Bull
I did.
start to snicker
He
because
laughed, smiled. Hmm.
he could not hold character because
Yes.
and that was a real problem with Sellers on the set, particularly when people around him had to be serious. They kept
Yes.
that clip in. That clip made it,
Yeah.
or that version made it. But because I think everybody watching the scene is focused on Sellers, but if you look over
Yeah.
at Peter Bull, he starts to smirk, and
Yeah.
can't fix that.
Yeah. I have that in my notes as one of those, did you notice type of things. And I don't
Yeah,
know which time I noticed it, but after I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I thought, oh, that was great. Yeah. He just couldn't help himself.
yeah. Let's. I'd like to talk about George C. Scott,
Oh,
Buck
he
Turgison.
was great. He was great.
Yeah, in such a different role for Scott.
Hmm.
And you probably read the same notes that I read on this, that George C. Scott really hated being directed by Kubrick, because Kubrick said, no, more, push it, push it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he felt like he was turning his character into this goofy, kind of crazy nut. And at one point, I think he slips on the floor and gets up. And Kubrick thought he was in the role because that's what that
Right.
character would do. Left that scene in the
Left it
final
in.
cut of the movie. But Scott did not like working with Kubrick in the moment, but in retrospect, he thought it was probably one of his better roles. And if
Yeah.
you've seen him in The Hospital and you've seen him in other films, Patton, there's no joy. I mean, he is not extending his chops into kind of the satirical comedy that he does in this film.
No. I read that they played chess when they were not filming. That
Yeah,
Kubrick was an excellent chess player, and he did that to keep George C. Scott kind of under control.
yeah. Well, he also played chess with other actors in other films. I've read that in
Hmm.
some of the but this time I read that he was really a master chess player,
Hmm.
and as a result, I think he played chess with Tom Cruise on
Hmm.
Eyes Wide Shut, and he played chess with Nicholson maybe
Hmm.
on The
The
Shining.
Shining.
You have to go back and look at that, but I've
Yeah.
read that in other places. That was his. While everything was being changed around with the scene or lighting and stuff like that, they would
Hmm.
have an ongoing chess game at the side. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He was probably one of my favorite characters. I have quite a number of things I thought were interesting about him, but the chewing of the gum I thought was just hysterical.
Yeah,
And the
my
more
favorite
he
scene.
talked, the more he chewed.
Yeah, My favorite scene with him, and I have a still that folks who are watching the video, is where they're like, where I think the president asks him, do you think they have a chance to get through?
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of gets all excited because he's like, our guys are
Right.
so well trained. They will fly under the radar. They will bring that thing right in. Of course they have a chance. And then he
Yeah.
realizes what he just said, that,
Uh-huh.
you know, and he has to kind of
He
pull it
said,
back.
yeah, he said something about they'd be so low to the ground they'd be burning chickens as they go or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he got very excited.
yeah. I think, you know, I think you've got Sellers doing his three different roles. Those were interesting. But Scott's, you know, singular role, and I think he gets credited. He's second on the credits in this film. This role, I think, was just marvelously executed by Scott. Although he had different opinions and he had different feelings, I think, when he was doing it. Yeah. So
Another part of his role that I thought was really funny was at the end of the movie when they were talking about, shall I say this,
yeah,
after the bomb,
yeah,
that they could, they would have some people left over that they could, potentially, start a whole new population. And Dr. Strangelove is talking about there would be a ratio of 10 to 1 women to men. And they looked right at uh, George C. Scott and he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. I like those odds. 10 women to 1 man. He's like, oh, he said, well, we wouldn't have monogamy anymore, would we? He's like, no, I don't think so because you men would be too busy. And
yeah.
they
He
used the
said,
word servicing all
regrettably,
those women.
yeah, regrettably, we would have to give that up.
Yeah.
I don't think it was regrettable for George C. Scott's
No, he
character.
was quite,
In the,
yeah,
well,
like
you know,
that idea.
he was seen in the first scene of the movie with his secretary, who
Yeah.
shows up again in the film as
Yes.
Miss Foreign Affairs.
Hmm.
I think it's Slim Pickens is looking at a Playboy, or it might be it might be
That was in the beginning.
yeah, that was in the beginning,
Yeah,
but
Slim Pickens is reading Playboy.
yeah, and they do a shot inside to show the centerfold, and it is
Hmm. It's her.
George C. Scott's secretary,
Yeah.
and she has a book that says Foreign Affairs. She's laying flat, face down, and she has a book that says Foreign Affairs draped across her buttocks.
Hmm.
And so they refer to her as Miss Foreign Affairs.
Hmm.
So, yeah, he shows up. He's quite the player. But so is she,
Hmm.
because she takes a phone call from somebody else and is obviously connected
Oh, yeah.
to that person
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah. She called him by his first name. She
yeah.
said, I forget what his name was. She said, well, so and so, honey. And then she relays the information to George C. Scott, as what was being said as top secret information. She relays it to him. But then she goes back and says, now, what was that, honey? You could tell, yeah,
Yeah.
they had something going too.
Slim Pickens.
Ah, loved
You
him.
want to talk a little bit about Slim Pickens? There's some trivia around this, I
Sure.
know.
Yeah, let me just see here. Um, okay, I read that he had no idea that this was a satire, that he was actually only shown, he played it straight. That was his normal way of speaking, his normal way of dressing, that he showed up on set dressed with his cowboy hat and boots, and that's how he normally appeared. Um, and he was only shown the scripts for the scenes that he was in. So he had
Hmm.
no idea what was happening other than the scenes that he was in. And I'm sure you would agree with this. One of the favorite things was when he was describing what was in their survival kit.
He
I don't
says,
have that list in front of me.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you can have a great time in Vegas with this.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There, there's the scene, and this is I'm showing it to folks who are watching the video version of this. But he's walking through the bomb bay, and you can see on the back of the warhead, nuclear warhead, handle with care,
Care.
and
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
Dear John and Hi There painted on the back, which is what soldiers, airmen used to do. They used to kind of paint messages on their bombs.
Right.
The story that I heard about him was he showed up, as you said, he showed up to work as he shows up to work in kind of a cowboy, and he starts using this accent, and it might have been James Earl Jones that he kept using the Slim Pickens kept using this accent, and he figured, well, he's a method actor. He's staying in character. And then somebody explained to him, no, that's how he normally talks.
Exactly.
And I don't. I've seen this movie so many times. It's hard for me. You've seen it 4 now, and you were able to kind of pick out the laughs the third time through. For me, it gets harder to be surprised by the laughs. But there's one thing that gets me, that got me when I watched it this last time, where he's opening the safe to get the plans out, attack wing R, plan R. And he immediately takes his helmet off and puts his cowboy hat on. And he's going to wear that cowboy hat for the rest of the experience. And when he puts that cowboy hat, I laughed, because it's sort of like,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah.
Major Kong is going to do his
Right.
thing. So,
Yeah. And also there was, again, if you watch it real closely, when he's talking about, he said, well, shoot, a fella could have a good time in Vegas. He didn't really say Vegas. They dubbed that. He really said Dallas. But because
oh,
that was right after, remember, that was right after
yeah, it was
President,
after Kennedy's
yeah, Kennedy hit him
assassination.
shot. So they changed it to Vegas,
Vegas.
but it really was Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that line. I remember that setup, and until I watched it last night, I remembered it as Moscow. A fella could
Oh,
have a good time in Moscow.
in
Not that
Moscow.
not that that's accurate. It's just for some reason that's how I remembered
Huh.
it.
Yeah.
And I forgot about what you said, that they dubbed in
Dubbed
Dallas.
it in.
They
Yeah.
dubbed in Vegas instead of
Vegas.
Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They delayed the release of this all because of
Hmm.
to get it away from JFK's
Yeah.
assassination too.
Yeah. And I think when they went in to get you might be right, when they were talking about getting the information out of the safe for all of them to
Right.
go over you know, wasn't that when you could see the inside of the safe? It's almost like reminded me of like high school with a locker. You put your pictures inside. They had little Playboy pinups and all that stuff inside of there as well.
Oh, I didn't
In one of
catch
those.
that.
In one of those. I don't know if it was that one or
Or
another
if it was,
time, but somebody
it's
opened up a safe and there were all these little
yeah.
pinup pictures in there.
Yeah, whether it was, I don't know if it was Major Kong when he opened the safe, but then James Earl Jones opens up a safe to get
Yeah, he did
the
too.
information, and it might have been his safe that had
Yeah,
that in
one of
there.
those times though, I thought, yeah, what else is there to do on that plane? The one guy was, he was pilots, he's reading Playboy. The other guy, he's practicing card tricks. It's
Hmm.
like they have a lot of free time on that plane, and what do they do?
Yeah. Um, any Other thoughts about the movie? I think there's some things that are critical at the end. I mean, that whole discussion that Peter Sellers has as Dr. Strangelove, where they're asking about the Doomsday Machine. And he said, the Doomsday Machine only works as a deterrent if people know about it. Why did you keep it a secret? And just that whole idea of deterrence and nuclear deterrence that was meaningful at that time of when the movie came out.
I had mentioned this in our last movie, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, about Myrna Lloyd choosing all the paint colors. I
Mm-hmm.
read that Kubrick in this movie wanted the tablecloth in the war room to be green.
Right.
So it looked like they were all sitting around a poker table, trying to decide the fate of the world. But the movie was in black and white.
Black and
So
white. I don't know. I
that
mean,
didn't make any sense when I read that.
maybe that's to influence the actors.
Okay,
If it
maybe.
was more symbolic than it was
Mm,
determined that, this film was shot in black and white. Color certainly was around, but he chose not to use that as an
right,
option.
he did that in
And
black and
and
white.
his earlier films, like The Killing, was shot all in black and white. The one that I told you about with Sterling
Mm,
Hayden and as a lead in that. So,
okay.
um,
And I read there
the
was an alternate ending.
oh yeah, talk about that.
Well, I didn't read. I don't know too much about it, although they said um, the alternate ending involved a pie fight among the two sides,
Yeah,
like cream pies or you pie in the face. But there's actually I found some footage of it online where they show like clips, but it was cut out because they said that wasn't the ending that he wanted. He didn't want it to be a funny ending. He wanted the ending that we know. And also they just couldn't stop laughing. He
yeah.
wanted a Yeah, he didn't want that type of an ending to
He
that
wanted
movie.
he wanted an angry pie fight instead of a laughing pie fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I think maybe he thought where this film has gone so far in the narrative, a pie fight seems kind of silly
Yeah.
when there's a
Yeah.
message here. And do you want to end it with a pie fight? So yeah, I they went with the ending that we got, which I think
Yeah.
was powerful
Yeah.
in what it was saying.
Yeah.
Peter Sellers at the end, Doctor Strangelove. He has a major scene where he starts to talk about, and I'll tell you, when he talks about the underground thing, and he goes, "Animals are bred and slaughtered." He does that. He does
Yeah.
that line. I mean, I've seen it so many times. When he gets to that line, it's like I want to repeat that line with him because of that piece. And then the whole improvisational thing that he did when he gets out of his chair and is standing
Hmm.
and he screams, "Mein Führer, I can walk,"
Walk a
or "It's
walk.
a miracle, I can walk."
Yeah. I can walk.
And that was just improvised by him.
Uh-huh.
It's probably that final dialogue about what it would be like living underground and what the experience would be and how people would find a joy that they are continuing on the human race and that
Hmm.
process. So,
Hmm.
well, I don't know. There is so much trivia in this movie that instead of trying to put a lot of it into the show notes, because it would overrun the amount that I can actually put in show notes on YouTube or in any video or audio version of show notes. that I would just direct people to IMDb. There is over 150 trivia statements in IMDb about this film and things that went on with it.
Yes, when you sent me the show notes this morning, that's what you said in the email. Now don't get too excited about 14 pages of show notes. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good, Marty.
So, is there anything else that you want to point out about the film and the timing, or things that you noticed because you watched it with fresh eyes, and then you
Right.
researched it with fresh eyes. So, things that you might think are remarkable for our listeners that they need to know about.
I think for me, I mean, I enjoyed Dr. Strangelove's character, but he actually was the least amount of time in the movie
Hmm.
for the three ones that Peter Sellers portrayed. My two favorites still were George C. Scott and Slim Pickens. I
Yeah.
mean, George C. Scott, I thought was just, I loved it when he got the phone call from his girlfriend, whatever she was, mistress, whatever, in the war room. She's calling him, saying, I guess, when are you coming home? And he refers to himself in the third person. He says, oh, he said, don't worry, honey. Buck didn't forget you. Buck will be home soon. Buck's going to make you Mrs. Buck Turgidson. And I thought, here he is having this conversation with this woman while they're discussing a nuclear bomb. Yeah, I
And
thought,
then at the end of it, he says, "Oh yeah, and don't forget to say your prayers."
yeah, don't forget to say your prayers. I'm like, what? Yeah, all the while, and he's unwrapping all this gum, this Wrigley's gum. I thought,
Yep.
my God. And he just reminded me almost of a teenage boy. He just kept getting more and more and more excited over this. Oh gosh, yeah, I enjoyed his character. Like you said, it was so over the top, but I just thought he made the movie in that respect. And the scene where he did fall over, as you said,
Hmm.
that was unplanned, that was unscripted, but he just carried it off so beautifully. He kind of rolled on the floor and then got back up. And then the one time, I think it was the Russian ambassador, they were fighting about the
Hmm.
camera, saying, he planted this camera on me. He's like, no, I didn't. He said, yes, you did. And they're fighting. And the president says, gentlemen, there's no fighting in the war room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one
I,
of my favorite lines.
something that occurred to me when I was watching it last night. I wonder if you caught it. The opening title sequence. Did you
Oh,
notice the
yes.
symbolism of that?
Yeah. I did the
Two,
second time.
yeah, two
The
airplanes
first time I
refueling.
thought, what are we doing here? Yeah.
Did you notice the theme music?
Yes.
Try a little tenderness.
Uh-huh. Like I said, it was very much a lot of sexual undertones, sexual innuendo. Um,
Hmm.
Not offensive in any way, you know. But yeah, I didn't get that the first time. I guess I wasn't really paying attention. I thought, oh, that's really nice music, and that's really soft and serene, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going
Yeah.
on. And then the second time, I went, hmm, yeah.
So I don't think I have any more on this. Do you have any final things that you'd like to say?
Well, even though in the beginning I said it's a guy's movie, it's not. I mean, there's a lot anyone can relate to. It's a very thought-provoking movie. Um, I think everyone should see it if you haven't seen it before. Even um, even if you haven't seen it, like really wasn't sure if I had seen it. Everybody's heard of this movie. I
Yeah.
don't think there's anyone who hasn't heard of the movie, and so yeah, everyone needs to go and watch it at some point.
Yeah, it is a cultural reference point.
Yeah.
Yep. So, what are we doing next episode?
Well, we're going back to Hitchcock And this time we're doing Rope, which I told you I haven't seen before. I've seen little bits and pieces of it, but I haven't. This is one movie that I have not seen before.
Yeah, this is from 1948, Alfred Hitchcock, written by Hume Cronin, which I find interesting. Patrick Hamilton and Arthur Lawrence. I believe it was based on a stage play because the setting is all staged, similar to what we did with Dial M for Murder, based on a stage play,
Right.
and sort of single shot face on view with it. It's James Stewart, John Dahl, and Farley Granger, and it's from 1948. And if you know anything about the Leopold and Loeb case, that's something that you should reference before you see this movie or after you see the movie. Leopold and
Say it
Loeb.
again.
It was Leopold and Loeb case. Clarence Darrow was there. Eventually, Clarence Darrow was their lawyer, their attorney, and it is the Rope case is the curiosity that these two men have that they're going to commit the perfect murder, young men, and that was
know
the
that
case
much.
that was the case with Leopold and Loeb. This was also done in another version. I see it. It occasionally comes on. It comes on TCM, and I'll have it for the next show. But it had Orson Welles kind of playing the Clarence Darrow role. He comes in as a defense attorney to try and save these two guys who. And that movie is so patterned after the Leopold and Loeb case. It uses all the clues, and it's just rewritten and written over that storyline without being biographical. That will set you up for understanding of the Rope. The other trick is to find Hitchcock in this movie.
Okay.
That was a
Look
challenge.
for 'em. And is this a favorite courtroom scene of yours again? You like courtroom scenes?
There is no courtroom scene in
There
this
is
movie.
none.
Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
okay.
It all occurs within a apartment and a dinner party. I think James Stewart plays like these boys' teacher, and they take some joy in trying to get one over their teacher. It's an interesting film. Probably one of the latter Hitchcock films that I saw. It feels a little uncomfortable for me at times watching it. I don't know what that is. Maybe when I watch it again this week, I'll get into that and talk about that the next time we do it. But it's one of those that if you enjoy Hitchcock, it's one of the films you have to see because it's a whole different approach. I would say more similar to Dial M for Murder, but a different kind of Hitchcock feel to it. So we will have that for the next episode. And that pretty much wraps up this episode of Fade to Chat and our review and stories about Dr. Strangelove. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Share this episode with someone who also enjoys and appreciates cinema and will enjoy kind of relooking these films. I had somebody tell me in our small group of tech friends that you and I have that
Yes.
whether they've been listening to this or not, I don't know. But what they do is they pay attention to the movies that we talk about and they put them on their Plex servers so they can watch them at some time if they haven't watched them. So I thought that was pretty
Nice.
cool. I was really touched when they said they did that.
Yeah.
You can find out more about what we do at thepodtalk.net. That's the website which connects all of the different podcasts that we do, including this one. You can email us at the Pod Talk Network at gmail.com. That's the Pod Talk Network at gmail.com. If you have movie suggestions, things that you want to let us know about, we're happy to hear and receive email. Our website, of course, is youtube.com/@fade2chat, so you can watch the live video of this. If you choose to want to go back and see some of the scenes that we've captured and put in. Until next time, for Cindy Rotz, I'm Marty Gencius. Keep watching the classics, and we'll see you as we fade to chat.